I'm Natasha Kaufman, and welcome to my podcast, Don't Just Talk, Say Something, Lessons on 20 Years of Business. Over the past 2 decades of running my public relations firm, NKPR, I'm so grateful to have met, worked with, and learned from so many talented industry leaders. And I'm so excited to be able to share their stories and life lessons with all of you on this podcast. I'm so thrilled that one of my most brilliant friends, Jamie Haggarty, said yes to being on the podcast. As a business leader working at some of North America's biggest brands, including Rogers, Corus, and Deluxe Entertainment, Jamie is one of the most strategic thinkers I've ever met. And over the many years of working together, I've learned so much from him. On this episode, we talk about how navigating tough times can make or break you, why listening is so important, and you'll want to remember this one thing Jamie says: why not you? Here's our conversation.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm pleased to be here with you virtually. I wish we were together. I wish you were sitting here next to me.
I wish we were together because it's snowy here, but it looks pretty nice over there.
Well, you could show me your background if you had to, turn your camera to your window, but that would be disruptive and your producer would be upset. But no, I'm flattered by your opening comments and your introduction, and I'm thrilled to be here because, as you know, I've been a tremendous admirer of you and your work, personally and professionally, for so many years since we met, to be honest.
Well, let's talk about, let's start at the beginning. We've known each other now, is it 12 years?
I think it was 2008 or 9-ish.
Okay, so
14.
14. Let's talk about when we first met. We worked on an amazing project together. You were at Rogers, and I was pitching a show idea to you. And it was the Ford model, Supermodel of the World, contest program. And you were like, and this is one of the things I love about you. You said yes. You're like, okay, let's try this. We brought on a sponsor, and we created a program from scratch in the midst of you moving, because I remember Rogers was in one building. You were in charge of that entire move. I guess, tell me how, when we first met and I pitched the idea, how did that sort of, why did you say yes? Actually, it's true. Why did you say yes?
Well, you know what? One, you're very persuasive because you've done your homework. So your pitch was not just off the cuff pitch. Your pitch had all the benefits to me, the recipient of your pitch. It wasn't all about Natasha and her client and her pitch. You actually also addressed the benefits for me. And it's your classic Natasha Kaufman win-win that does and can exist. And so you got my attention because it wasn't all about you and your show and making somebody famous. That was number one. Number two, it was very Canadian. It embraced our audience, and it embraced City TV, which was at that time, Rogers bought City in 2000, and I think it was around 2008, maybe 2007. The deal closed in 2008. And the effort was on to address and reflect Canadian programming, Canadian personalities and talent. And what was really cool about that show, and it's amazing how far TV and reality TV has come, which is, we all know reality TV has a high degree of scripting, but that mini series that we produced, I say we because we were partners in this, was very real. I mean, we, as you recall fondly, I do fondly, one of my proudest things is we went across the country and did casting calls for unprofessional models to give some young undiscovered talent an opportunity of a lifetime. And it was genuine. And I think I have a shared affinity or attraction or tolerance for risk. So it was a risky venture. It was a costly venture to go from Vancouver to Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, Montreal. I think that's as far east as we went, was Montreal. And to do the casting call. It was exciting. It was reflective. It was risky, but manageable risky. And it kind of fit our values that we wanted to reflect something of the coast to coast nature of unprofessional talent.
It's so interesting that you talk about risk because I was talking to Caitlin Cronenberg, and that was exactly what we pinpointed is you can't move forward or progress without an element of risk. You need that. And, that makes me think about, when I think about your career, and one of the areas that I wanted to touch on is the fact that, people think that if they're going down a certain path in a career, that they have to stay there. And you're a really good example of someone that you're so good at so many different areas of the business. And I remember, when you were running Sim and you rebranded that entire company, you bought other companies. There was like, you had to bring that company together. And so what I've always admired about you is that, you take risk, you take chances, you kind of sort of look at, you know what, I'm going to try that. And you've had a lot of success doing that, because you're that person that kind of gets in there, figures it out, and you're able to make a lot of sense of the direction that a company should go in order to get where it needs to go. How do you, this is going to sound like a weird question, but how do you assess risk? Like, how do you sort of make those decisions when you pivot?
Oh, it's a good question, because I don't think about how I got there. You just somewhat of it is for me is instinctual. That it just feels like, yeah, we should do a Ford Supermodel search, or we should rebrand the Sim, because you're right, we had acquired 8 different companies. They were related but different. One was a soundstage company in Vancouver,
Yeah.
post-production in New York, post-production in Los Angeles, post-sound in Toronto, and camera and lighting and grip. So to take those great brands, because they were all founded by the 8 founders that were still with the company.
Mm-hmm.
And so the challenge there was, there was twofold. The risk was twofold. One was that we would lose the founders that were part of the Sim group, that they say, I built this company, it's got my name on it. So you might lose them. So that was risk number one. You bought the company because of the founders. That was a big part of it. And so risk number 2 was clients. Clients could rebel to say, I didn't want to be a part of this big, generically branded company. It needs to have a soul, needs to have a personality. And I think those 2 risks we mitigated up front. Like, we thought it through in advance. There's no deep scientific mystique to it. You think through, what are the downsides? What could we do wrong? And you address that before you roll it out. You try to get as many of those risks and pitfalls that might happen before you do anything, and think through, how do you manage that proactively? But you're always going to miss things. As much as you try hard to mitigate risk, you're often going to miss something or two.
There is some mystique, by the way, because you said, well, there's no real mystique to it. You're actually way too modest, because you know what the mystique is? No ego. So here's the thing. You have no ego when you go into a company or a new venture, and you're kind of looking at, how do I make this better? How do I get it to where it needs to go? And you remove your ego from it. That's why you're able to sort of assess, here are the 2 important factors of when we bought these companies. We need to take into consideration that the owners matter, and we don't want to lose the clients because the owners matter. And so, whereas a lot of companies, people will come in and they'll get rid of the owners right away because they're thinking that they are the only ones that matter. And so, one of the lessons I always learned working with you is there's no ego, and you have to always put what matters first, and you have to assess what matters. And, I just feel over the last, 14 years that we've known each other, I've learned so much from you, and I continue to learn so much from you as a leader, because you're one of those leaders that has always led with a lot of empathy, but you expect a lot from people, but you're very clear on what you expect. What do you think your greatest sort of leadership qualities are?
Well, thank you for those comments. I humbly do pride myself on that sort of no ego. I don't know if it's my parents I attribute it to, from my upbringing, or being the 5th of 5 kids. Maybe it was beat out of me as a child that there's no room for need for an ego. And I've had success professionally and personally by not having to flex an ego. I think some of those key attributes really are that, if you work hard and work smart and you're dedicated, you will you will achieve, I don't know if I want to say success, but you'll achieve what you wanted to achieve.
Mhm.
And in my case, it was buy-in. I wanted people to buy into the new plan of a rebrand, or to buy into um, a game plan or launching of new services. At Corus, I remember the day we launched 6 new channels on the same day, and that was in probably 2003 or so. And I remember it was a big deal when we launched Treehouse. Launching one channel was a big deal. To launch a channel, master control and programming and subscribers and getting cable companies on board, that was a big deal. Well, that day we launched 6 in one day. So I think a big part of it, is you touched on, is communication. It's one thing to have a plan, but if you can't communicate the plan and give people the reason to believe that you can achieve the difficulty, if they believe it and they get on board, it's like the old analogy of people all having all 8 rowers rowing in the same direction in unison. It's amazing. It's a thing of beauty. If you see those 8 rowers, scooting down the river in unison, because they're on board. Not to say you can't disagree, not to say we should have launched other channels, or why not 4 instead of 6. I'm a big believer in disagreeing with people and having people disagree with me, because then you prevent yourself from blind spots. Because I think a challenge for many a leader is like-mindedness, or too many people thinking and acting like the leader, because that's going to help my career. They'll like me. I'll progress further. And I disagree with that. I think it's important to disagree. You don't have to be disagreeable.
Yeah, that's so true. That's definitely you. When and I've seen it happen. Do you remember? I wanted to talk about our most memorable moments together. And I have one. I want you to think about what yours is. I mean, I have many actually, but I have one in particular that stands out. Well, actually, I probably have 2, but I'm going to mention the one. 5 cities in 5 days. And I have to say, you and I were like the best travelers together. We packed efficiently. We were the only ones, I think, that did carry on. We traveled with 3 other dudes, and they had big suitcases.
Yeah.
Just to let our listeners know, we did a cross-country tour when we were rebranding Sim, and it was important for you, I remember, to get everybody on, all of the employees in all the different markets on board. And so we did Toronto, Los Angeles, Vancouver, New York,
And Atlanta.
And it was one of my most memorable experiences. Honestly, probably one of my most memorable experiences in the last 15 or 20 years, because it was fascinating to see how you were able to unite all these different companies, all the different offices together. And it was very important for you to go to every single market personally. And it was like a mini, I guess, roadshow that we did in all the markets. And so I love that entire process. And but also one of the most memorable things for me was just the fact that we traveled very well together.
That certainly is one of my memorable takeaways from that, from our professional relationship. We did travel very well together. You are a road warrior, and you're right. And checking bags is for rookies.
Oh my God.
When you're on, especially on a sprint like that, it was not a 2-week getaway. You need beach wear, you need evening wear. This was a get her done, roll up your sleeves, get in front of clients. I mean, here in Los Angeles, we had probably 300 guests at our rebrand party. Remember, it was indoors and outdoors, and we had food trucks, we had music. And we did that in every market. We did it in New York, etc. It was important to do that because I didn't want a client or an employee to have questions over, why did you do this? And you don't get that out of a press release on its own. Press releases are important, but they're one tool. And I found it important just to be able to walk around, meet with people, speak with them. Whenever you have food and beverage, provided you get a good turnout, and we had great turnouts from staff as well as from clients. And to be able to take, questions and concerns over brands, and a lot of these brands had great legacies, and employees joined those companies because of that reputation of those brands. And so that was a very fond memory of mine of how to deal with that, a rebrand. I'll tell you one of my fond memories though, Natasha, and you know this because I think I tell it to you every time you introduce me to somebody, is how great you are as a partner, showed in a unusual of circumstances when we did the Ford Supermodel search. And it was not Estee Lauder. Who was our sponsor?
It was L'Oreal.
L'Oreal.
Yeah.
And it was a shot that made it to air. And I'm sure the cameraman, and I'm sure it was a man, felt very good about what he was shooting, because he was showing an eye application onto an eyelash, and he had the makeup artist made sure that they got the little container that the eye makeup brush was dipping into, and showing it, going on to the model's eyes as she's getting her makeup done. And unbeknownst to me and anybody else that pre-screened it, it was Revlon, I think it was Revlon product. It was a competitor to L'Oreal,
Yeah.
and it went to air. And I remember the aftershock of that, sitting with you for the first time, and you showed nothing but grace under pressure. This was your client on a project that you initiated, and me as the producer of this product, and aired it on our station nationally. It was a real faux pas. It's like a Coke ad having Pepsi brand show up in it. That just doesn't happen. It can't happen. And it was not intentional. It was a big mistake. And your guidance, coaching, calm, cool thoughtfulness helped me get through that. Because I do think people show their true colors when they're under pressure.
For sure.
And there are other ways to show the true colors, but I think when the heat is cranked up and people don't snap, and they think it through, they're thoughtful, that's the kind of person that I want to be associated with, because telling me the obvious is not helpful. Telling me how bad it was, how upset the client is, not helpful. We need solutions in times of where things go sideways. And you are a solutions person then, and you still are. You've proven to be a solutions person throughout. And so I think that was a memorable thing for me, in that how we went through a difficult experience. Because work, professional life, personal life, it's going to have its challenges. They're unscripted, they're unexpected. It happens. And how we navigate through those tough, difficult periods makes us better, stronger, and it can further a relationship. I think it furthered our relationship.
I mean, I remember after that situation, I was like, this is my person for life, truly. And we have remained friends ever since, because you and I are very similar that way. And I think that's one of the things that's really coming across loud and clear on this podcast is solutions are key. Like, you can't get stuck in the problem, and you can't get stuck in the weeds. You have to be thinking about, like, what is the solution and what is the path forward? No matter what you're working on, that's essential. And I think a lot of people kind of get stuck in the problem, but you can't progress from that. So you have to think about, like,
exactly
what is the path forward? Whether you're, you're talking about a career move, whether you're talking about a business that somebody's in. I think that's really key. One of the things I did want to ask you is, if you think about the last 15 years, let's say of your career, what would you say is what are some of the biggest learnings that you've had that you could share?
I think the first one is, from a career perspective, I'd started with why not you? Why not you? And I say that it could be, you can fill in the blank. Why not you for a project? Why not you for leading up a job? Why not you to do that? And my career, I've been in and out of finance and operations throughout my whole career. So, I'm a classically trained chartered accountant, but I didn't want to be a finance person all my life. I didn't want to do that kind of role. I want to be more involved with running the business. And, as I was sitting in the finance role, looking at the operations people, and I thought, why not me? I mean, why can't I do that job? They make decisions, they take risks, they lead people, they communicate, they devise a plan and implement a plan and get people on board and delegate and manage. And why not me? So that'd be the one lesson I've learned in our time together is, why not me? For anyone listening to this too, why not you? If you want to be a part of a project or solving a problem, it's easy to go home and say, not my problem. But boy, people sure appreciate when people say, I'll help. Funny story on that. I remember standing in line at a food truck at Sims Lighting and Grip. And we had food trucks come in during the summer just to boost morale, just team building. And I remember this young fellow turned to me and he said, "Hey, are you new here?" I said, "Yeah. Hi, my name is Jamie Haggarty," and I forget his name, and so many years ago. And he said, "So what do you do here?" I said, "Oh, well, I'm the new CEO." And he stood back and he's like, "How did you get that job?" And I said, "Well, you know what? It's because I put my hand up throughout my career, not just for the CEO job, but I put my hand up." And I think the why not me kind of fits into that story, which is put your hand up for projects, put your hand up for putting out fires. If there's a big exercise or a big project, tight pressures, put your hand up. Why not you? Because that experience gives you wisdom, and wisdom makes you valuable.
I love that so much. And it's so true. I feel like I do that every time we get a new piece of business in an area maybe I'm not as familiar with, but I'm always like, but I'm the person that's going to dig deep and learn everything there is to know about the industry. And yeah, why not us? Why not me? And I love that. Because that's, when we were talking about earlier about risk and fear, that's exactly what it is. Put up your hand, take the chance. Yeah.
And because Natasha, as you were talking about that risk and your Caitlin Kronenberg example, it made me think of the reality is there's no playbook. It's not like you go to a manual and say, "Oh, here's what I do." It's you just figure it out with logic. You test and trial and error and learn and adapt and move on. It's not there's no playbook, and you just gotta jump in and let instincts kick in and be courageous. Try it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, totally. Well, because it's also failure isn't failure. It's just you're learning. Like learnings are what help you grow. And so anytime you feel like you're not certain about something and you think that it's a mistake, there are no mistakes. It's just like you're learning. And so through that, you're actually progressing. And so therefore you're actually moving forward. So you're absolutely right.
That's
I love
true.
that. Yeah, it's
And
so true.
I worked, as you know, I worked in e-commerce for just around 2 years, and it was a very hard 2 years. But I tell you, the learnings that I got out of that job, I went in as the COO and became the CEO. It was hard work. It was entrepreneurial. It was near startup. It was effectively startup, but they'd done a Series B financing and challenging environment, challenging conditions. But I feel like I got a PhD in data analytics, search, browse behavior, abandoned carts, like all the metrics and management behind e-commerce, which was not in my strike zone. As you said, I may not be totally fluent in that industry, but I can rely on my good judgment, critical skills, and my dedication to figure it out. And it was a great experience that was so hard. On the outside, you think, well, how hard can it be? E-commerce, you get product, you put on a website, you sell it. It's not that easy. And I learned, I won't say the hard way, I learned the real way, which was jumping in and learning. I think that's another skill is that people underestimate is to listen. We all like to talk, but listening skills, and I mean really listening. I don't just mean pausing, and let people talk. I mean,
No.
it's interesting to see a dialogue whether it's on TV or in a restaurant or in your own company that you're keeping, people that are actually listening to what you just heard and adding to the dialogue. Because on television, they don't have time for that dialogue. It's more of a Q&A, question, answer, and there's no real follow-up on hey, when you said risk from Caitlin, what did you mean exactly? Like, so I think true listening is a skill because it's amazing what you'll learn.
It's so true, because most people listen to respond. They're not listening to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's
That's better said.
you can always tell the difference. I always end the podcast with this question, and I'm going to ask you it as well. So I'm putting you on the spot, so get ready. We've known each other for a long time. And what is the one question you've always wanted to ask me, or you've wanted to know that you don't know about me?
Huh.
I've had some interesting ones.
That is a good question. Wow. What? Because there's so many things I love to ask you. Your favorite brand of chocolate, your favorite restaurant, your favorite wine. I think I know your favorite shoe. I mean, sports shoe. I don't know women's designer shoes. I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite movie?
Oh my God. Okay. My favorite movie is You've Got Mail. I have two,
No
actually.
way.
I have two. One is You've Got Mail, and the other one is The Adjustment Bureau. Neither of which I'm sure you would expect coming from me.
No.
But I loved You've Got Mail. I'll tell you why. Because I love the idea that you are in control of your life and your future, and you don't have to sort of stick with the path just because you're on that path. And so I don't know if you watched those movies, but Meg Ryan was with, this writer, and they were together, but then she met Tom Hanks online and they developed this friendship, and then she broke up with the writer, and then she just went on this sort of different path, and that was okay. And she allowed herself to be open to sort of what life had in store for her. Even though she thought for sure she was going to own this bookstore and own this bookstore forever, and that was just what she was going to do, but she kind of opened herself up to another direction. So I remember watching that. It was like in the late 90s. And I think there was a lot of what I was thinking at the time was, yeah, like I can be and do whatever I want. I don't have to stick to this sort of one path that I thought would be my life. And so it sounds like such a silly movie, but it was this sort of movie that I tend to watch on a regular basis to sort of remind me of that. And then The Adjustment Bureau is kind of similar in the same way. And I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but
I
you
haven't
should.
seen that one. Yeah.
Matt Damon
Okay.
and Emily Blunt. And it's the same kind of idea where it just goes to, again, it's about you're in control of your own destiny. He really wanted to end up with her, and there was like sort of the universe was going against them and making sure that they wouldn't. And he was like, no, I'm like, this is my path and this is what I'm doing. And he just made it happen. And so I'm a big believer in we control our own destiny. If I think about my life, I was an 18-year-old with a baby. Probably if you fast forward from there, I would never have necessarily thought that I would end up being me today, but yeah. I became me because I was just like, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to control my life and I'm going to control my destiny, as opposed to allowing an interpretation of what my life should be control my destiny. And so those two movies have sort of a similar theme to them. And I think that's why I like them so much. And interestingly enough, when I think about our chat for the last, 30 minutes, it's that same path. Like we are in control of our life. If you put your hand up, you can be whatever you want. Just do it. You have to actually put yourself in the ring. You can't be a
why not you?
Walking. Yeah. Exactly.
Someone's going to create a PR firm and have success and have great, clients that they're proud of, that have social conscience that you want to be a part of and help them succeed. Why not you? So, man, that's a great answer. And I learned something. I didn't know that about you, about the movies. And I did make a note of The Adjustment Bureau. I will watch that.
Watch, you guys will love it. You guys should watch that tonight. You and your beautiful wife should watch that
We will.
tonight. Please say hello
We
to
will.
her.
I will.
Okay.
I will.
Thanks, Jamie.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Natasha.
Thanks.
Can't wait for you to visit.
There are so many amazing lessons and learnings in this episode. Why not you? Don't forget that. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I always love hearing from you. Feel free to DM me at Natasha and KPR, and don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review and rating. Until next time.